What's up, guys? Welcome to the Being Beautifully Honest podcast and channel. Thanks for being here, for being subscribed. If you are, if you are not, go ahead and hit that button. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, while you're at it, hit that like button. It's like walking into the room and hitting that light switch. We just want to go ahead and brighten up the place, especially as early as it is in the morning as I am recording this, which is why my voice kind of sounds a little bit like this. But anyway, let's get into this conversation. I've been meaning to talk about this, and I'm just getting a chance to discuss it. But Daymond John, if you're not familiar with Shark Tank, he is one of the hosts of the show. It's been on for many years. I've never watched it. It was nothing that ever interested me. But if you're not familiar with Shark Tank, it's a show where contestants will come on who have either already thriving businesses or they have a business idea and they're looking for investors. Now, when the show first started initially, mainly I believe most people were coming on the show hoping to get that deal where one of the investors at least would be interested in their brand or business and want to take on the challenge of being an investor, getting a percentage or whatever the agreement is that they would make for getting one of these, these highly successful and wealthy or rich people to invest in their businesses. But over the years, I think a whole lot more people who go on the show, they go on it more for the exposure and not so much to get the deal, because it's definitely been one of those things where people who have gone on Shark Tank who did not get the investment because of the exposure they got, just because of being on the show, it allowed them to gain more access, exposure, and thereby more success and more money, which is what people want essentially. I think if most people were able to get the success and the exposure and the money without having to have a partner or having someone invest in their business where they were having to give up a percentage, they would prefer it. And I know I can attest to that because many years ago, before I started my business, which was 15 years ago this year, I thought I would have to go into it with partners, and things never worked out in that way for me. And I'm glad that it didn't, because I don't have to answer to anybody. I'm my own, I'm my own entity. But anyway, just speaking about that in terms of what the show does, Daymond John, and I don't know, it's something about him I've never really cared for. I just remember going to a Grant Cardone. I've only been once, and I actually went to Grant Cardone's 10X in 2019, and I went with at the time, friend who had 2 tickets, and she wanted to go and asked me if I would go along with her. She was in another state. We flew down there, met each other, and went to the conference. Daymond John was one of the speakers that year. I did not see all of the speakers. Actually, I think Steve Harvey was one of the speakers too. Actually, he was. I didn't see him speak, and I didn't really care. Didn't really care to see him speak. Bethany Frankel, she was one of the speakers. I did see her speak. We didn't go to all of the sessions because it was several days down in Miami. But anyway, Daymond John, he was walking around with his wife, and I didn't know anything about him personally. But just seeing him at the event, if you see my thumbnail, this is actually what he looked like. He was all dressed up, and he had his wife, and you see what she looks like, so I'm not even going into that. But it was just an air about him that I did not care for myself, right? So to see this story, it really didn't surprise me, and I don't like it for the family because I don't think that they did anything wrong. But basically, he filed a restraining order against a family who was on Shark Tank, where he was an investor in their business, and some things are going on that they didn't really care for, and because they spoke out about it, he wants to shut them down, and I don't like it. It's my personal feelings. Of course, my personal feelings mean absolutely nothing. And honestly, unfortunately, neither do their personal feelings mean anything either when it comes to the judicial system. But this family created this brand, and to have it handled in the way that they feel like they're being iced out, I don't think it's cool. And especially since this is an African American family. Daymond John is African American. And listen, I'm not one of those people that plays the proverbial race card, but to have this man who, in my opinion, I feel has benefited a lot by having somebody believe in him, because he created the FUBU brand. I never wore that stuff, but the FUBU brand, For Us By Us clothing. And he got LL Cool J to believe in his stuff and start wearing it and promoting it. And that's how he got on, you know? And I don't know what type of agreement he and LL Cool J had, but I don't think LL Cool J would have done him like this, being another African American man. So to see him doing this, it just kind of pisses me off. But the story is that he filed a restraining order against former contestants who accused him of cheating them out of their profits. In 2013, John made a contract with small business owners Al Bubba Baker, his wife Sabrina Baker, and their daughter Brittany Bowl Baker, after they appeared on Shark Tank to present their bubbasq boneless baby back ribs. The family accused John of cheating them out of their earnings, according to the Los Angeles Times. The Bakers allege that they were offered $300,000 for 30% of the company when they appeared on Shark Tank. They said they've only seen 4%. 4% of the $16 million in revenue. And they accuse him of revising the original contract to give himself 35% of the company and decreased his offer to $100,000. They said that they have been intentionally excluded from business meetings and company decisions. And John filed the temporary restraining order to silence them from slandering him publicly on social media. His spokesperson denied the allegations, saying there have been repeated attempts to give the Bakers the ability to correct their violations. Rosenfeld told to Entertainment Tonight, and says, "It is unfortunate that it has come to this. This temporary restraining order is due to the Bakers' blatant actions to undermine a business partnership and the legal parameters they agreed to 4 years ago. Their belief that they can unwind poor business decisions through slanderous social media posts and articles will no longer be tolerated." And, you know, that comment right there got me to say their belief that they can unwind poor business decisions through slanderous social media posts and articles will no longer be tolerated. So what are they calling the poor business decisions? Is the poor business decisions that they allowed Daymond John to get more than he deserved? Is it the poor business decisions that the profits that the business is seeing somehow in this agreement that they signed, that, in my opinion, just knowing based on how a lot of things work in business, they didn't have an attorney review themselves. So there was some language in the contract that allowed Daymond John to do the things that he's doing. That's what I feel like it is. And I don't think that that's fair. It really saddens me and sickens me to a point to know that there's so many business entities that take advantage of people with these contracts that only really benefit the person who's writing up the contract. And then if you come to challenge it later, they just say, oh, well, you signed it. And I don't think that that's fair. So that's why I feel that they're out here saying what they're saying. And I don't like it. So I don't think these people are lying. They didn't say that the family is telling untruthful things or that they're lying. The statement is their belief that they can unwind poor business decisions through slanderous social media posts and articles will no longer be tolerated. Nothing in that statement says this family is not telling the truth. So you just want to shut them up. You want to gag them and keep them quiet. And that, I feel, is unethical. I mean, I guess it's not unlawful because they filed a restraining order to keep them quiet. So I don't know if the restraining order has been granted, because you can file a restraining order. It doesn't mean that it's going to become permanent, because most temporary restraining orders are put in effect immediately until a hearing is held. And then at that point, it will either be rescinded or it will become permanent. So to see this, it really pisses me off, because if you look at him and you look at his wife, I'm sorry, people are going to judge. And to see this African American man who looks like he's short, so I feel like he might have a little complex as well, because he's got this tall Caucasian wife, and you see the both of them together, and it just honestly makes me feel like you don't care about the people that look like you. And again, I'm not even one of those people that likes to play, like I said, the proverbial race card to say you are supposed to help people out that look like you, because that I don't believe is true either. I'm not saying that you should do them dirty either. You definitely shouldn't do them dirty, but you shouldn't do anyone dirty. And so to see this, it just really aggravated me when I saw this story. And based on the comments of some people in the story that I read, I mean, a lot of people feel that way too. And I'm just reading some of the comments now, so I didn't even read these comments before. Someone said, I can believe it. He gets the side eye from me, which is why I stopped watching that show. Someone else says, Daymond seems like a snake. Someone else says, he needed the money to support his, and this is someone else's comment, so listen. Okay, I'm reading. He needed the money to support his white wife. You know how some black men prefer to give their money back to the white community. That's what someone feels. They left that comment, and that's how they feel. You know, some people may say, well, why did they go to social media to talk about this? Why didn't they get an attorney and take this to courts and deal with it there? Listen, it costs money, and I'm quite sure that the type of attorney that they can afford is not the same type of attorney that Daymond John can afford, or attorneys, because I'm quite sure he has a legal team and not just an attorney. That's the type of waters that they're in at this point in time. So I believe that they want to expose him. They feel like they probably won't win against him, but they want to expose him so that people see him for who he really is. And like I said, there's something about him just based off of what I've seen about him, and just going back to some things. There was a story about him back in 2020 where he was accused of trying to sell face masks at more than 3 times the market price. He was accused of trying to take advantage of the CV pandemic by hiking the market price of face masks. And for somebody like him, like, why would you do that? According to the Miami Herald, he tried to sell N95 face masks for $7 million. He offered to sell the mask at $7 each, which is more than 3 times the market rate per mask, okay? The State Department of Emergency Management at the time, Jared Moskowitz, he spoke about the situation. He said, this was not somebody off the street. This was Daymond John. He came to me and said, I've been in the clothing business. I have connections with factories in China. Desperate to get the supplies, the state agreed to pay him $7 million for 1 million face masks, according to the Miami Herald. And the state signed a purchase order on March 25th of that year with the law firm Foley and Lardner, and they were handling the transaction. But by mid-April of that year, the multi-million-dollar deal fell through as he was unable to deliver the mask. And so Moskowitz said many people were duped. And of course, a rep did not respond to the newspaper for a comment from Daymond John or his company and brand. So, stuff like that for somebody who would try to, I get it, that industry, they make money. Okay. People were also donating face masks. So not all people were selling them. But for him to try to benefit and profit off of it during that time, which was literally the height, the beginning stages of the CV situation here in the United States, for somebody who was a multimillionaire to do that, I wouldn't put it past him duping this family out of the fair share of the profits that they deserve, and just allowing other unscrupulous things to happen with their business and their brand and their boneless ribs that I believe is like a baby to them. You know what I'm saying? So I know they always say there are two sides to a story, and some people say there are three sides to a story: their side, the other person's side, and then the truth. I don't technically agree with that, and here's why. When they say that, what that means when they say that there are three sides to a story, that means that both sides are not being 100% honest. And why is that? Why can't one side be 100% honest and the other side only sharing a part of the story? I don't believe that this family's lying. I don't know the full story about what Daymond John has alleged to be the truth. I only know that he's filed a temporary restraining order to silence them, and they've been sharing their story. So in my personal opinion, I'm just sharing my opinion, I feel like they're not lying. I feel that they're telling the truth. And people like him really piss me off, because when you've got the access, you've got the money. I know they say that just because you've got a lot of money doesn't mean that you don't want more. I actually believe that. Why wouldn't you want more? But that doesn't mean that you have to be a snake in order to get more. I actually believe that you get more by giving, especially when you get to that space in your career where you've advanced so much. I'm quite sure that what he offered to these people was peanuts in comparison to what he could have done. And so for them to say and allege that they've only seen about 4% of the 16 million in revenue, that's insane. It's their company. Oh my God. It just, I can't stand stuff like this. And just seeing images of him with the side eye, I feel like it speaks volumes. I don't even have to hear his voice say anything. I feel like his side eye look speaks volumes about who he really is in terms of his character and integrity. I really hope and pray that this family gets what is rightfully due to them. I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know when that's going to happen. But we all know that people like the Daymond Johns of the world, they like to try to shut people down and shut them up by utilizing the money and the power that they have to keep people in court and in litigation to try to pretty much run them dry, because it's not cheap to have a legal team. It's not cheap to be in courts, and I don't recommend anybody do it. And unfortunately, sometimes you wind up in these situations that are beyond your control. But if you can do your best to try to prevent it, I would highly recommend it, because it's just not fun. It's a lot of wasted time and energy. And then, of course, the money. And a lot of people just can't afford to do that. But some people will, you've heard the phrase before, bury you in litigation. What they really mean by that is, yeah, I'll keep them in court and I'll keep running up those legal tabs and keep, running up their time, that I'm sure that they don't have any of it to spare. So it's just not right to see something like this, but I hope that they get the justice that they deserve. And you guys can let me know your thoughts about all of this in the comment section below. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. This is Beth. I'm just being beautifully honest. So until the next time, I just wanted to keep it brief, beautiful, and I'm going to say bye.